Hey everybody, episode 75, Podioslave podcast coming at you. It's Anthony, we got Nate, we got Tony. What's going on, guys? You guys doing good?
Yo, I'm doing good, man.
I'm doing good too. We're at the best nerd lunch table of all time tonight, so it's always fun.
Yeah, so who rolled up to the nerd lunch table tonight, Nate?
A good friend of ours, Nick Wheeler, decided to sit next to us today in lunch, and it was a great conversation. Got to geek out, pretty well tonight.
So Nick Wheeler of the All American Rejects, founding member, lead guitarist since 1999. We'll get into all that in the episode, but Nick was a fantastic guest, and I think we're going to get into it now with Nick Wheeler from the All American Rejects.
If you like what you hear, please go back and listen to some of our other interviews. We've had Scott Russo of Unwritten Law, Ryan Sinnott of The Distillers, Frank Turner, singer-songwriter, and Peanut from 311.
She's a girl who had it all.
All right, we're here with Nick Wheeler. Nick, thank you for coming on the podcast with us. I know you're a busy dude, and we appreciate you spending your time with us here.
Yeah, what's happening? Thanks for having me.
So, Nick, let's get the elephant out of the room, man. So we've had a few bassists on this podcast recently. Actually, a big streak. You're breaking that streak, but we got to know, man, what do you have against the bass guitar? Because you played every instrument for the All-American Rejects. Except what seems to be the bass guitar, man.
Well, our singer Tyson actually plays bass, and so he's played bass on all the records. I've played, I guess, just about everything else, but it's not something you see too often anymore. I think I can only count on one hand the number of like lead singer / bassists. But man, I tell you what, having your singer be the bass player, it lends itself to very creative melodic bass lines. So I couldn't do it better than that. So yeah, I don't need to do that. But I will say, I did just have a band in here who doesn't have a bass player. So I had to play the bass track on that tune. That was pretty fun.
So the streak's alive, Twan.
You just stuffed us in a locker. You just put me in a locker.
Actually, that was the band I worked with most recently. So right now, of like the latest thing that I've done and played is bass. So the streak is alive.
Wow. So rhythm guitar, lead guitar, drums, keys, bass, backing vocals. Did I miss anything?
Well, I moved to Nashville a few years ago, and I tried to teach myself to play the banjo. If you asked me 4 years ago, I would have added that to the list. But I think that was a really short-lived hobby.
I was going to say, doesn't Mumford & Sons need a banjo player?
Probably, now that they're plugging in.
Yeah.
I mean, all our minds are blown because we grew up not playing a whole lot of instruments. I played drums a little bit. Anthony played bass. Tone, did you play?
Played saxophone for a little while, and that's about it.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Saxophone.
Yeah.
Dude, you know what I can't do is any instrument that like uses like your mouth or your breath. Like I only do backing vocals sometimes because I have to, and it's mostly live. It's the whole breathing thing. I suck at it, man. And I especially like lately, I've really wanted to learn the saxophone because it's kind of becoming cool again.
Mm-hmm.
So I would love to get down on an alto sax, man.
Yeah, that's what I had. I had the alto sax from 5th grade to 8th grade, and they called me Tony G.
Tony G.
My God, I love it. Tony G.
I feel like Marge Simpson made it cool back in the day at The Simpsons too. But yeah.
Yep.
Now, Nick, you know what you should make cool? You know what you should make cool is the didgeridoo again. It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've seen those Ricola commercials. I need to bring it back.
Man, well, that aside, it seems like you have played so many different instruments and backing vocals. How did you even get that start, and how are you able to, tackle all those different types of instruments?
Well, geez. I mean, I started playing guitar first. I wasn't really allowed to play video games as a kid. It was one of those households. So around the age of like 7 or so, I started playing guitar. Nobody in my family was really musical. I don't even remember why I started playing in the first place, but I loved it. And as soon as, my hands got a little bigger and I could actually play a G chord without using my thumb, we were around 12 or so. That's when I really got into it. It was also when like other kids started to notice, like, oh, hey, he's not just that weird quiet kid. He plays guitar. That's kind of cool. And girls start to notice, and you start doing it for totally other reasons. Right. But then you can only play by yourself in your bedroom, for so long until you want to start playing with other people. And around that same time, I wanted to start playing in bands, but nobody else was really that serious and really even that good. So I just kind of picked up whatever I had to play to be in a band. And first that was drums, because everybody fucking plays guitar. Right. Right. Especially in the 90s, everybody plays guitar. Everybody knows Nirvana songs, and that's about it. So I started playing drums, and I got in percussion in school band, which I actually really enjoyed. But then once I got to high school, once it was 9th grade, and they made us wear like, the full on polyester uniform and practice out in, the August heat in fucking Oklahoma.
Ooh,
I quit that shit real fast.
Yeah. That sounds.
Oh, and I played the bass drum too. So not only was I in polyester and fucking 110-degree heat, I was carrying around this like 40-pound monstrosity on my stomach. So, so yeah, that ended real fast. And then, actually, the singer in my band, Tyson, like I said, he was the bass player, or is the bass player, but he was just the bass player in one incarnation of my band, and I was the drummer. And after a while, we were the only two that came to practice. And you can't band practice isn't really that fun when it's just the rhythm section. So we started writing songs and recording them, and so I started playing guitar on them, and who knew, he was a great fucking singer too. So I just kind of made the rounds and, played whatever I needed to play. And I guess that's, that kind of comes in handy now that I'm doing more, production stuff. And sometimes I'm working with a singer who doesn't play anything and I have to be the whole band. Or, for example, this band that was in here last week, they, everybody came but the bass player. So that was my role that week, so it's come in handy. I wouldn't say I'm an expert at any of them, but making my way around, I guess.
So you've had your hands on a bunch of them. So what one's your favorite?
Man, I'm not just saying this because of the way this conversation started, but I fucking love playing bass, man. Like,
oh, nice.
It's so fun. It's the one instrument that I don't think I've ever played bass in a band. No, I played bass in a band at the 8th grade talent show. But that was very short-lived.
What'd you cover?
Did
you cover anything?
Yeah, I think we did some Rancid songs and some originals, which were just abysmal, I'm sure. But it was one of those bands where it's like, let's just see how fast we can play. So it was terrible.
So like you've seen the full picture of being in a band. Like, does that? Obviously helped you, right? I mean, obviously you've lended your talents on the production side, but like getting into a band, do you think that helps? I mean, a lot of people in bands are kind of one-trick ponies. The drummer's the drummer. Do you think that's helped you?
Right. Yes, absolutely. It's also kind of a curse because just kind of knowing my way around each instrument that's on the stage, I find myself listening to everybody else way too much, not just listening to them to play with them and like all be in the same pocket, like actually listening to what they're playing. And it kind of, sometimes it kind of takes me out of the moment and I stop kind of feeling what I'm doing, or even sometimes I stop paying attention to what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. And I'm the one that's fucking up because I'm just listening to everybody else. But it's fun. It's kind of, it's the same thing as like, in some music theory and being able to communicate in a musical way. Sometimes it helps to know your way around those instruments so you can speak to those players and in a way that they'll understand, and, and vice versa.
Nice. I was just going to say, it's in listening and doing this podcast now for a year and a half, listening to other podcasts. And now that I've helped edit a little bit with Twan, who's done the lion's share of it, I listen to podcasts differently, and then I'm like, why didn't they cut that? why is that there?
Oh, I
Why didn't they turn
bet.
this up? It's all of that stuff. So I'm sure you have that ear too. And it's like, man, sometimes you're in your own head.
Yeah, it's kind of like, our singer has done some acting as well, and he's always been really into movies, and the way I've noticed that he watches movies is different than the way that I do, and I don't want to know anything about that world, about that business, because movies and TV is pure escapism to me. Because sometimes music isn't. Sometimes I'm too analytical, or like you said about podcasts, I'm just listening. Even if I'm listening for pleasure, I'm listening to chord progressions and melodies and harmonic structure and production stuff, and I'm not just losing myself and being present in the moment of listening to music, or even I'm not even listening to lyrics anymore. So yeah, there are certain things that I don't want to know anything about, so that can be escapism, And for me, podcast is one of those things, but I totally understand what you're saying.
Yeah, that's difficult. It kind of takes the enjoyment out of it. Another thing with like technology and whatnot, like watching an old sitcom from the 90s on high definition TV, you're like, shit, I can tell they're acting now. This sucks.
Right. Dude, so Frasier is one of my all-time favorite shows. And when I go back and I watch it it was on Hulu for a bit. I think they switched to Peacock now, but it's not in widescreen. It was shot in a square, for TV. And it feels like I'm watching a play.
Exactly. Yeah. It feels forced in a lot of ways. I remember taking a film class in college, and they focused on like the transition between scenes. And it's like, I don't think this adds to the experience. Like, I don't want to be focused on that. I want to experience like the whole artistic piece of it and it as a whole. So I can definitely understand that, like, where it can take away from the experience.
Totally.
It sounds like you can relate on the music front.
Oh, absolutely.
We need to stop poking holes in music and TV, or movies and TV, though. Nick's not going to come back.
Yeah, don't break the fourth wall, man. I don't want to know.
Yeah. So you're playing instruments growing up. You're from Oklahoma, right? Stillwater.
Yep. Yes, sir.
Curious as to what the music scene is like there. Like what kind of drew you into wanting to play shows in front of people, and were there places you went there that kind of helped build that for you?
My hometown is a college town. Without the college, it's only about 30,000 people. It's mostly an agriculture town. There was really no music scene growing up. There's some bars because there's a college there, but it's mostly cover bands. A scene kind of came out of Oklahoma called Red Dirt in like the 80s and 90s. It wasn't my thing. So if there was any kind of a like semblance of a scene there, it was probably that. But that, I grew up listening to 90s alternative and rock, so I didn't give a shit about that. So yeah, our scene was kind of cover bands, so when we started playing shows, and of course I wanted to play shows. If we wanted to play one, we usually had to put them on ourselves and play at house parties or at friends' houses, or rent out a field, and get a keg.
Hell yeah.
But if we wanted to play to like automatic, just there's people there already and we didn't have to get them there, it was at bars. And I've been playing in bars since I was like 15. Nice. So yeah, it was funny. We got permission slips signed by our parents, which I don't even know if that's a thing. Like, it was just like, yes, we know where our child is, and it's okay for him to be in this bar right now.
That's amazing.
That would never happen.
And because the cops. Because the cops would come. Yeah, this is probably shit, mid to late 90s. The cops would come in and they'd be like, yeah, how fucking old are these guys playing? Like, they couldn't be more than like 12.
Yeah.
And we'd be like, we got these permission slips. And they were like, they didn't know either. They were like, okay.
Yeah. Right. Wow.
And so we just got back up there and continued playing fucking Proclaimers, I Want to Be 500 Miles, or just whatever the fuck we needed to play to play shows. It wasn't always what we wanted to do, but it's what you had to do to be able to play outside of, your bedroom or your rehearsal space.
Mm-hmm.
I guess to answer your question, it wasn't as, I never started playing music for that sense of belonging or to be included or involved in a scene. For me, it was always, it was escapism to begin with. but it was also a way to get out of my fucking hometown. Like that was my ticket out. You know, I didn't even consider moving away to go to college somewhere else. I was like, I don't even know if I can do that. Like I can do this. So I'm just going to figure out how to do it and how to do it to where it gets me out of here.
You know what's interesting, something you just brought up, and I've never thought of this, is the fact that had you not been in a place like a college town where you can kind of play to people that are maybe a little bit older than you, but might be your, you know, in business terms, like your consumer at some point, kind of early on, right? That's like the Abercrombie business model, like go after them when they're like between 16 and 25, you know?
Totally.
That's how it works, right? But the only other music I can think of Oklahoma that I got into was the Flaming Lips, which is kind of the opposite because it's like psychedelic rock with like a lot of drug influence and stuff like that, which, you know, that's like the polar opposite spectrum. It's not really catering to any scene, but that's what I knew from Oklahoma at the time. So it's interesting that if you didn't have like that local scene, you know.
Totally. And, you know, like I said, the college scene in my town was mostly cover bands. If it wasn't, you know, some kind of country thing like Red Dirt or whatever, from what the other guys in my band tell me, who are from about an hour south of me, closer to Oklahoma City, they tell me there was actually a pretty great punk rock scene in the 90s. And I think there still is, but, you know, I mean, that was a different world, you know, that was an hour away, you know, like we weren't getting driven down there, you know, to be a part of that scene. Like we were very secluded. Like there wasn't even a highway that ran through our town. Like you had to drive 20, 30 minutes just to get to the highway. So, I mean, we were stuck.
Yep.
Well, it's funny. We had Toby McAllister from Sparks the Rescue, who I know did a run with you guys in Europe on this podcast. And they're from our neck of the woods up in Maine. And he was just saying how being from Maine, it helped and hurt them. Like it helped because it was unique, but it hurt because you're in the corner of the U.S. and there's not a booming scene. I mean, you're a couple hours from Boston, but in my head, I almost feel like being from Oklahoma is like the same thing. You know what I mean? It's like, especially starting when you guys did so young, where you're probably at the mercy of your parents driving you.
Oh yeah, I got driven to many shows in my parents' minivan with a drum kit in the back.
Oh yeah.
Later, I inherited that minivan, and you know, out of necessity. But yeah, man. I mean, it's interesting. I think there's pros and cons. Nowadays, I don't think it would be as big of a deal. I mean, we got started before YouTube, before MySpace even. So there was no social media or even internet outlet to be discovered. We literally had to be physically discovered. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I don't know if that just made us work harder. You know, it certainly made me learn how to record music and, you know, put them on tapes or CDs or whatever. And, you know, I've packed so many envelopes and, you know, I've been to the post office a hell of a lot, especially back then. But yeah, it was weird because I went to record my band's first record in New York City in the early 2000s. And it was right after the Strokes came out. And there was a scene there, like that they were kind of like leading at the moment. I feel, you know, maybe that's just my perspective, but you know, I went there, I was like, wow, like every band here is cool. Every band here reminds me of the Strokes. Like this is what a scene is like, you know, everybody's got bell bottoms and pointy boots. And I'm like, this is rad.
Yeah. So how did you, let's backtrack just a little bit before you get there to New York in 2002. How did you guys end up forming? You said they were about an hour south of you. How did you end up with Tyson and then kind of putting the thing together that you wanted to make your own music and maybe, you know, get discovered, as you said?
Right. Well, you know, like I said, Tyson and I were in several bands throughout school and, you know, we were just, you know, last man standing eventually. And so we just started making music, you know, and between the two of us, we could play everything and, you know, he could sing. So, you know, by that time I'd been recording in my bedroom for a few years and, you know, so we just made it happen. And we started playing shows. We had a couple friends drum for us occasionally. Sometimes we just played with a drum machine, which Now, isn't that weird? But
Right.
back then it was fucking weird.
Yep.
But in doing that, I think we met Mike first, our other guitar player. He was in a band that we kind of traded shows. His band would come to Stillwater, where I'm from, and they would open for us at a college bar. And then we would go to Oklahoma City and we would open for them there. And we eventually just stole him. And then eventually Chris started playing for that band too, our drummer. So we ended up just stealing both of them because we seemed to, I don't know if we had more traction than the band they were in, or if we just, I don't know, maybe we're more, I don't know. They they went with us for some weird reason. I don't know. But, and, then, I mean, that was just kind of it. And, we were at the age where there was nothing going on in our lives except for that. So it was like, well, this is what we do and we got to make this happen. I tried college and dropped out. Mike had tried college and dropped out. Tyson was still in high school at the time. Chris was, I think, delivering TVs. That was like back in the day where like when you bought a TV, like they brought it over and hooked it up for you. Like that's what he was doing. Yeah, exactly. It was like totally like 40-year-old virgin, like a store like that, I think.
Yeah.
But like I said, I stuffed a lot of envelopes with demo tapes and I just flipped over CDs because record labels would put their addresses on the back of CDs.
Mm-hmm.
And I would literally just send unsolicited demos to record labels, that had bands that I like. And this one label called Doghouse Records out of Toledo, Ohio at the time, they had a band called the Get Up Kids. And like that was the soundtrack of my freshman year of college, which was also very short-lived, but college, not the Get Up Kids, still a big fan. But but yeah, I mean, they literally like dug it out of the trash because they saw like the cover and they liked the picture on it or something. They're like, sure, let's try this. And they flew to Tulsa to watch us play in this warehouse that we used to play, once a month called Curly's. Took us to the spaghetti warehouse downtown Tulsa. And we're like, nice. So yeah, we want to sign you and make a record. Like, when can we do that? We're like, well, we only have 5 original songs. You've heard all of them. They were all on that CD. And they're like, all right, we'll go write the rest of them. So we're like, okay, like how many songs are on the album? Like at the time it was like 10 to 12. So we're like, all right, cool. We'll write like a handful, half a dozen songs or so. And we'll go make a record. And that was summer. And we were going into Tyson's senior year of high school. So he ended up graduating in December. And we literally, the day after Christmas, we packed up the van and we drove to New York City and we made that first record for like $10,000, slept on the producer's floor, lived off of like bagels and hot dogs for 2 months. And that was it.
That's crazy. Yeah. What you just said kind of proves the point. Like, I feel like a lot of maybe casual fans almost thought you guys were like an overnight success, which is like not even close to the case. I mean, starting in the late 90s, and that record you recorded was in what, 2002, the Doghouse record? We
recorded it the beginning of 2002. We actually drove to New York right after September 11th and made that record the following winter.
Wow. That's awesome. And like we love Doghouse, like Get Up Kids, As Friends Rust, like we love that whole scene from back then. Yeah. So what's interesting is like, so that comes out in 2002 and then it gets re-released on DreamWorks, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know how it started happening, but just while we were making the record, people started talking and some people would drop by the studio, people would call us, people would call my parents' house. It was kind of a trip. Like I said, we drove to New York City to make that record. And when it was done, we were like, okay, cool. Like we have a record. Now what? Even though it was, we were signed and we were on Doghouse, it's not like we just got in the van and went and started playing shows. It's like, okay, well, not only do they have to come up with like some sort of marketing strategy to release this thing, but, there was talk of maybe upstreaming it to a major, and that, that takes fucking time. So we drove back home to Oklahoma and we moved into a 1-bedroom garage apartment, all 4 of us. And there were bunk beds
That's awesome.
The four of us slept in a couple pairs of bunk beds, and we just kind of waited for the phone to ring. I mean, we got like a local booking agent. We tried to keep playing as many shows as we could. You know, we would drive down to Oklahoma City or even Dallas, up to Kansas City or Wichita, over to Lubbock. Just pretty much, I mean, when you're playing a bar, you're not going to get paid more than like 75 or $100. So we just pretty much went as far as that would buy us gas for. And I mean, we just, you know, did as much as we could on our own until, well, we burned that garage apartment down because we had too many things plugged in.
Oh, wow.
It literally burned to the fucking ground. We had a couple like 4x12 cabinets in there with some Marshall heads and shit. And we learned the hard way that you can't have the stereo, the guitar amps, and the microwave working at the same time. So
that's amazing.
Yeah, so it literally burned down. I had to move back into my parents' house for a little bit, but you know, that was spring of 2002, and then by the fall we were talking to DreamWorks. The record came out on Doghouse. We were on a couple tours. Like by that fall, things were going. Like we were only kind of, you know, waiting around for about 6 months. To answer your question, I mean, overnight success in the way that, yes, like our first single got on MTV, and
Massive.
You know, later that year we were in a bus and headlining, you know, our own shows. Like, yeah. I guess that's technically overnight, but I mean, no, like any hardworking band. I mean, we've been playing in bands, and I've been playing in this band at that point for, you know, 3 or 4 years. So yeah. So of course, you know, when you're doing it and living it day to day, it doesn't feel like overnight at all. But I mean, yeah, we got lucky. First one out of the gate, like, did it for us. So
it's a banger. Swing Swing is an all-time song.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate that. It turns, oh shit, this fall will be 20 years since it was written.
Wow.
Insane.
Yeah. Yeah.
Rewinding a little bit on the album signing, was there any kind of showcase, or did they literally just get your demo and they're like, this is good to go, like, let's do this?
We did a couple of showcases. I mean, okay. This was 2002, and you know, record labels were still cleaning house, you know, by selling records. Yeah. You know, bands went on tour to promote the record. You know, we never even made money on the road because we would spend all our money on production and stuff like that because we were selling records. So that being said, record labels were spending cash too. So they flew us out to New York and LA, and literally every 2 weeks during that 6-month period I was talking about, they would fly us, you know, left and right, and, you know, take us out to fancy dinners. A couple labels took us to strip clubs. It was insane. Like that shit. I don't know if it happens anymore, but I haven't heard the stories. That's for sure. It was gnarly. Yeah, a fucking experience to say the least. But during that time, yeah, we did a couple showcases. Those never went well. They were fucking awful. Hated them.
Oh, no.
Terrible. Like, equipment wasn't working. You know, label executives would walk out in the middle of them. Like, they were fucking terrible. I wouldn't wish them on anyone. DreamWorks was different. They actually flew out to Oklahoma to see us, like, in our element.
Awesome.
And then they flew out the entire fucking record company to Norman, Oklahoma to see us play in the, I kid you not, there was like 20 or 30 people. I think they were just trying to kind of put on a show, I'm sure, but like they also wanted to kind of see what they were getting themselves into. You know, they flew out to this show. The PA never showed up. So we played open air acoustic. Wow. The whole fucking label was there. But they still signed us. So, I mean, I guess it wasn't that terrible. But yeah, they were cool. They were the most down to earth and chill. And our A&R guy there was just a great guy who he ended up flying out to several shows. He came to Kansas because he was from Kansas City. So he came to a couple shows out there. Just super down to earth people, and you know, never had like the douchey LA experience that I was talking about earlier with them. You know, yes, there was a couple fancy dinners that we would, I remember flying home from LA once after they took us to the Palm or some shit. And we literally had leftovers in our bags flying home with like leftover steak and like setting off the fucking like the security alarm because like the steaks were wrapped in foil and it was like setting off the metal detectors. It was hilarious.
Hey, you guys are young. What do you expect, right?
Absolutely, man. I'd never had steak before. It was insane.
Well, and you never knew what it was like when that might go away, right? You got this one ride. You don't know if it's going to last forever. You might as well take advantage of it and take some steak home with you.
Totally. I don't even know if I was that self-aware. Like, I knew I was lucky, and it was like 1 in a million, like getting to experience something like this. But I was just being a shithead. I was like, man, this is good food. I'm not going to get to eat this tomorrow. So let's fucking order some more and take it home. Yeah. And in every record label we went to, we got to raid like the fucking CD cabinet. So I remember I ended up going on these trips with an extra bag. It's like when you like tour Japan, they tell you to like go with an extra, like an empty suitcase because all the souvenirs and gifts you're going to get.
Yep.
I literally started doing that when we would fly to see record labels. Cause I would come home with like the entire fucking Rolling Stones catalog and like just it's insane. Like kids that sign record deals now, they don't get the swag like we did. Like that fucking I mean, maybe you get download cards. I don't know, but
maybe
my CD collection is
Post them on Reddit.
CD collection is my CD collection is the size that it is because of those trips.
Yeah. But it was harder for you to get signed because it's harder for you to get found out back then too because the internet and all that. So it's kind of a double-edged sword.
You're right.
You earned all those CDs.
Goddamn right. Yeah.
Did you have a 90s high definition TV kind of third person like, oh, this is like playing out like a fucking movie right now? Did you have like any moment like that when you were getting signed and all that stuff? Like, man, this is exactly like Almost Famous. Is this real life?
I don't know. I've probably had a moment like that since then, but not at the time. At the time, I just kind of got swept up in. It kind of just felt like, I don't know, like it was a dream, but I didn't know I was dreaming, kind of thing. Like, it was kind of, I was young and fucking stupid. Like I was just kind of along for the ride, and I'm sure I took a lot of it for granted at the time, but I certainly don't now. And I mean, just looking back and, telling the stories, I'm like, fuck, I can't believe that was real. Like,
And context is so key. Like being 20 in 2002 is way different than being 20 in 2021. Like,
oh, absolutely.
Like being blissfully ignorant was like the norm. I feel like.
Ignorant as fuck. And I think things like the internet and social media and just being more socially aware now make 20-year-olds are way different now than they were when I was 20. I mean, everybody in their 20s has their moments, and that's the time where you get to fuck up. Like, I just think people aren't fucking up the ways that we fucked up 20 years ago,
Right. No, the world is watching now.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You can't. So your people are probably not taking some of the risks that they would have otherwise, and some of it you shouldn't do anyway, obviously. But
no, sure. And I'm not saying I got away with anything 20 years ago.
Oh God, no. No.
I just think I was a lot dumber than kids are nowadays. Like kids just keep getting smarter, man. Every generation.
Totally.
Yeah. It's just totally different now. You're a 20-year-old. You're like, what do I want to master? Oh, I'll just sign up for a master class. That didn't exist back then.
No,
totally. Like I didn't even think about. I didn't even know there were colleges where you could go to school for music. The town that I grew up in, like I said, was an agricultural town. So if I wasn't gonna like go learn how to fucking run a farm, it's like, what do you go to school for?
Right.
I took a music business class actually, but it on the first day I found out that it wasn't like the record business, music business. It was like how to navigate like the world of being in a union as a musician, like as an orchestral, like a string player or something. I was like, I'm in the wrong class, man.
Yeah. Where you were headed, you didn't need that union.
No, hell no. But now I'm in Nashville, and every musician here is union, so it's
Yeah.
a totally. I'm like, fuck, I should have taken that class.
Yeah, right.
So like we said, Swing Swing, massive song, self-titled. We use a term on this podcast called front to back, and that's an album that has no skips. And the self-titled is
there's a couple skips on there.
no. Come on now. It's full front to back. So that's the debut. Obviously, you guys get massive off that. Round 2, obviously, it must come with like a lot more expectations. Howard Benson gets tapped. Like, does it feel different the second time around?
Oh, sure. We didn't know what we were doing. We thought we did. The way that album worked, I mean, okay. So kind of retracing, when we got signed to Doghouse, we had 5 songs to our name. We were like, okay, let's just go write the rest of the album. So we went and we wrote 6 more songs, and then we recorded them, and that was it. So when it came time to make the second record, we were like, okay, let's go write 11 songs, and then we'll have an album. So we ended up renting a place in Florida we didn't want to go to LA or New York. We were from Oklahoma, but we were, I guess, popular enough to where when we went back to our hometown, it was annoying. So we wanted to get out of there. So we went to Florida. We're like, all right, cool. We're going to stay here for 3 months. We're going to write a song a week, and then we're going to have our album. And that time came and went. We had 10 songs or so. I want to say one of those ended up making the record. Maybe 2, but it got to the point where luckily management was like, just keep writing. And like, my personality is the type that kind of wants a deadline. I'm like, okay, but till when? And they're like, we don't know, they were just waiting on the songs basically.
Mm-hmm.
It got to the point we had probably 3/4 of the record written by the fall. And, like I said, we were just living down in Florida. Like, we just kept extending the lease on this place. It was like we're paying month to month. And, we'd even tapped the producer of the first record. We were like, we're just going to go do this again. But, the label wanted us to, and management wanted us to keep writing. They wanted us to meet, other producers and stuff. It's kind of like when you're young and when you're in high school, your girlfriend or a partner, whoever at the time, is like, that's who you're going to be with forever. But it would behoove you to get out in the world and meet some other people,
right,
and have some experiences. So that's what they wanted us to do. We met some other people. We had some experiences by driving up to Atlanta, and the other 2 guys flew out from Oklahoma. We all lived in a $30 a night hotel. One of us ended up geting bed bugs.
Oh, wow.
It was gnarly. Like, this is the kind of place you can rent by the hour. We lived there. Now it's like a boutique hotel. Now it's in like, there's a fucking Urban Outfitters next door. Like, it's super hip now.
Now it's an Ace Hotel.
Yeah, exactly. No, exactly. But yeah, so we had some experiences there. And while we were there, we ended up writing all 3 of the singles from that record a year after we thought we were going to be done writing the record. And Howard Benson came down there, listened to us in the rehearsal space. We played Move Along and It Ends Tonight for him and our A&R guy. And then he was like, okay, cool. We'll give you some money to make a record now. We're like, oh, thank God. So yeah, we got to do it again.
When you were just talking, Nick, I couldn't help but think, like, I'm trying to put myself in your shoes, which is difficult because I'm not an artist, but I definitely appreciate what you do for work, and that's why we're here all talking. Is when you get this advance from the record company and you're kind of slated with this job to write music, like you said, you wrote those 3 singles that we classify them as bangers. Like, do you know when you have something? Like, is it like you clocked in for work, you guys put your heads together, and you found inspiration? Like, I always think, like, you don't always tap into it. It taps into you. Did you kind of know in the moment, or?
I don't think you know to what degree something's going to connect, or if something will connect, for that matter, or if it's going to work and, be big or whatever. But I think you definitely know when it feels good and when it's special. Those were certainly special to us, and they felt good to us, and they felt important to us, and they're authentically us.
Right.
So I think that is a big reason they connect, is because people connect with authenticity.
Totally.
But we also like to write, anthemic shit.
Mm-hmm.
I always like to say it's kind of the way the 90s were too. I mean, the chorus is for everybody. The verse is for the artist. Like, that's where you can say some like fucking left to center shit that nobody's going to understand. But when it gets to that chorus, man, that shit's got to be universal. It's got to connect. So I think that was kind of the formula for those songs. And that was another reason they connected. Yeah, but there's also been other times, I know we knew that like Dirty Little Secret was catchy, but we didn't want that to be the first single. We didn't even know if we wanted it to be on the record. Same thing with Gives You Hell. I think it was, I'm skipping ahead now, but that's the third record. I mean, it was like, okay, this is clearly different than where we've been. And if we put this out, people are either gonna get it or they're gonna fucking hate it. Maybe both. Maybe it'll be a mixture of both, which it was. But yeah, I think being scared is also another tell. It's like, okay, this is scary, but like sometimes, move into a new city where you don't know anybody, or when you graduate college and you're like, fuck, I got to get a job now. Like, I don't know what that's like, fortunately, but yeah, I mean, it's scary. It's like, okay, I may have to go back to college or just get a fucking job, Mm-hmm. I think we all thought we were eventually just going to end up having to work a Blockbuster. Fortunately, we didn't do that either. That wouldn't have lasted very long.
So we were just talking about how like Tyson has dabbled in acting and it changes the view he has on movies, but like what you just said might change the way my view of music, where like the chorus is for the audience, the verse is for the band. Like that's so I've never heard that, and that's gonna stick with
really?
me.
Yeah.
That's totally gonna stick with me. Yep.
I always say that when I'm working with other artists and they're hesitant to put something really personal in a song, and if it's in the verse, I'm like, fucking do it, man. Like that this section of the song is for you, and the whole song should be for them, sure. But if they're trying to do something anthemic that connects with people, it's like the verse that's yours. Like, keep that for yourself. Wait for the chorus. That's when everybody else can fucking sing along.
Yeah. Well, especially the differentiator, especially for us as like music purists, is the fact that you actually wrote the music. There's a different dynamic when you have a team of people writing the music for you and it's catchy. It's like, well, yeah, you have 15 people writing the song for you. Like it's a trial and error thing at that point. But if you're writing the music, like you said earlier, like it's genuine, it's authentic, and the listener knows that just by listening to it. They know like, oh, this was written by 15 people, or no, this was actually written by these 4 guys, which is pretty rad.
Right. And I think what's different nowadays, when we were writing that second record in Atlanta, there was talk of collaborating with people and bringing in some writers. I think the label was just like, whatever we need to do to get the songs, let's do it. But in 2004, like when you're a self-contained band, that's icky. Like you don't want other people coming in and contributing. Like, this is our thing. We're going to fucking dig and we're going to figure it out. Fortunately we did. I don't think that always happens. We got lucky again, but nowadays I think collaboration is actually, it's looked at differently. And because everybody is so open to it, I think you can still get some authentic stuff from it. There is something to be said about the artist being in the room and being a big part of it, though. I do think sometimes those songs that are just super catchy and super universal, that are written by a room full of people that doesn't include the artist, I think that's when it gets a little, it's just too watered down for me at least. And you can tell that the artist isn't speaking from their experience or, just from themselves. It's like, okay, they're just a vehicle for the song.
You took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to say the same thing. They're a vehicle for the song, right? The song is written by a bunch of people, but it's packaged a certain way, and it's, whoever ends up being that package to put it out to the world. Yep.
Right. And, I used to look at who wrote and who played on records, back when there were liner notes. And if there were other people writing, I remember seeing I remember when Aerosmith started bringing in, outside writers, when Def Leppard started bringing in outside writers. I was like, Like, I don't know if I like this. I like the songs, but this is different. That's how I knew. But nowadays, I think, like I said, people are getting smarter, and they can smell a fake, from a mile away. So if an artist is just kind of phoning it in and they're just the mouthpiece for that song, then I don't know. It might connect, but not in the way that we're talking about, like in the authentic way.
Right. That's the word, a term that we've been using for years is nerdery. That's some nerdery shit right there. That's the stuff that reading the liner notes, finding out who's written the song. Does it feel different than the last album? Yeah, it's because there's like 3 different people that wrote the song than what used to be on the album. That's some nerdery right there. We love that shit.
Oh, absolutely. Oh yeah, well, this could get nerdy real fast.
We love it. We love it.
All right, so Nick, I want to pivot to some live show stuff. So obviously the world's opening up, and people are getting back out on the road. Just over the years, we've noticed your tour history, and like my dad saw Bon Jovi and you guys opened. So like,
no way.
Yeah, totally. Like he's seen you guys, and I saw early on you guys toured with like CKY. It's like, so how did, like, I'm curious about from your perspective over the years, like, do you prefer the small gig? Do you prefer the stadium? Like, how is that, like, to kind of fluctuate? And obviously you guys have grown so much over the years, so that's a big part of it. But I'm just curious from the artist perspective of like, how is it, for all the variety?
I do like variety. My personality is very routine, and I do like things to stay the same day to day. But I will say, as far as whether it's working in the studio or it's being on the road, I do like to mix it up and have a different adventure every day, because when work is routine, it becomes tedious and monotonous. I like the stuff outside of work to be routine. I'm like a dog, like I want to know what I'm eating. I want to know where I'm sleeping. I want to know when things are happening. But when it comes to being on the road, we've been fortunate to be able to do, small club tours, big arena tours, festivals, and everything in between. Yeah, that Bon Jovi thing was a trip. Which show did he see? Did he see Boston, or was it in New Jersey?
It would have been Boston. So my guess is Gillette Stadium. My guess. It
was whatever the basketball stadium is there.
Oh, it would have been TD Garden. The Garden in
That's
Boston.
It. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we got to do a lot of shows with them. It started because they called us to be on their Unplugged in 2007.
Wow.
Excuse me. We were like a featured guest. It was us, and I think Carrie Underwood was on that, another Oklahoman. But yeah, and then for some reason we just had this mutual respect. I grew up listening to them. I got a fucking Bon Jovi tattoo. Like, clearly I'm a fan. But I think they just, I don't know. We hit it off, not in a super like personal way. Like, I don't have their number or anything, but they would call us to open up occasionally, and we got to they did 10 nights in a row at the New Jersey Devils Stadium when that opened, and then we also did a couple nights in Boston and a couple nights at Madison Square Garden, which were fucking unreal. But yeah, so that was a trip. But then, you mentioned another one I thought about earlier. I wasn't going to mention it because there's all kinds of stories behind it. But the CKY tour was super interesting because that was the first tour we ever did. Like, wow. We'd done shows. We'd played. We'd done. Actually, you know what? No, we did a run of a few shows with Bowling for Soup back in the day. But it wasn't really a tour because it was like one weekend we would drive up to Kansas and play a couple shows with them. Another weekend we would drive down to Texas and do a couple of shows. Like, we had never really left home for months at a time until we went on the road with CKY. Yeah, that was the fall of 2002. And it was they did not like us. We were put on as the first of 4. So we played first every night. In smaller clubs, like there were probably like 300 to 500 seat clubs. We were put on that tour because we had the same booking agent, and we told our booking agent, "Hey, we live in a shithole. We hate it here. We never want to be here. Put us on the road and keep us on the road." Mm-hmm. they were happy to do that. So they called in a favor, and I think it was our booking agent and their tour manager ended up putting us on. Like I said, they hated us. They treated us very poorly. You know, it was one of those things where they dished it as long, as much as they could. And we took it as long as we could because we were the first of four. Like, we're like, let's just fucking take it. And then eventually when they were on stage one night, we ended up stealing all their beer out of their dressing room. And then they kicked us off the tour.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
You got hazed, but you tried to give it back and they didn't like it.
I know, right? They couldn't take it. But it's funny. I actually ran into that tour manager recently. He lives in Nashville now. And we reminisced a little bit about that tour. And he was like, yeah, that the band actually came up to me at a festival recently and apologized because they were just totally out of their minds that whole tour, and they treated him like shit. I guess they treated him like shit too. And I was like, wait, you got an apology? Like, we're still waiting. But no, it's funny. And then it went on for a while. We would, on the next tour, we would go through and do like House of Blues or something. And it was when we went back and started doing venues over again, and they would see our name written on the wall in the dressing room or whatever, and then they would like write shitty notes underneath it. So yeah, so the hazing, and we would give it back too. So it went on for a while. I'm sure if I met them now, we'd all have a good laugh about it. But,
yeah, definitely.
But yeah.
That's awesome.
But yeah, so that was the other end of the spectrum. But I think my favorite shows. I love being on a big tour as an opener. We've gotten to do a couple of those over the last few years. We've done a few blank tours, and those are always just so fucking comfortable. The food is good. Nice. The showers are good. Like you can have the comforts of home on the road. Those are wonderful. Like,
yep.
As an older touring musician now, like those are my favorite. But I think as far as the shows go, I love theaters. They just feel good. They sound good when you're on stage.
Nice. Those
are a lot of fun. I do love club shows. I've played some clubs here as like a guest guitar player at some small clubs, and those have been a lot of fun. It's been a while since I've played something like that. I don't know. It's like I said, I like them all. I just don't like to do the same thing over and over and over and over. Mm-hmm. So the variety is nice. Been fortunate to do that.
Well, it's cool as music nerds too, like we were talking about earlier, like to go from playing something like, let's say New York City, for instance, like Bowery Ballroom, which is pretty legendary in itself, and then play Madison Square Garden and just have that contrast as a fan or as a musician must be phenomenal.
Totally. Yeah, I think we never got to do CBGBs, but we did do Irving Plaza a lot.
Nice.
So but there's a big difference between Irving Plaza and Madison Square Garden, that's for sure. Yeah.
So you're in Nashville, you're producing. How did you end up doing that, to this level where you're kind of, that's your day job now?
Yeah, so I moved to Nashville about 6 years ago. I stuck it out in Oklahoma as long as I could. We always said we'd never move to LA, but I eventually did. In 2010, I moved to LA. I thought it would be more convenient for, just because of what I do. We ended up putting out our fourth record while I lived in LA, and that 2 weeks of promo and setting up that record was super convenient. And I did sleep in my own bed those 2 weeks. That was nice. But that was it. I lived there for 5 fucking years. And for 2 weeks, I was like, this is convenient. The rest of it was a fucking shit show. I wasn't a fan of being there. So once that record was done, this was like 2013, we were still kind of doing some shows here and there. We were talking about what's next. Are we going to write another record? We'd been touring and just doing this grind for a decade at that point. And we just weren't ready to just dive right back in and do LP number 5. So Tyson started doing some more acting. At that point, we're in our 30s, or at least I was. We all had personal lives, and shit was different. So I stuck it out in LA a little bit, and we did some writing with some other artists. We got to write with Weezer. That was rad.
Nice.
But I mean, I never really considered working with other artists or writing with different people in LA. It just seemed too damn inconvenient. Like the couple times I tried it, I spent fucking 4 hours in the car that day. Like I was like, this is stupid. Like, so I started kind of just literally just closing my eyes and pointing at a map. Like, where do I go from here? And my girlfriend at the time was like, we should check out Nashville. Like, I'm hearing a lot of great things about it, and there's music stuff there, you could do. And I'm like, sure, let's check it out. So yeah, in late 2014, we came to Nashville, and I fucking loved it. I didn't even go back. I ended up selling my apartment fully furnished in LA, and I literally didn't go back. I just landed here and I stayed. And, I'd always, like I said before, I'd always had the recording gear, at the time when I was doing it in my bedroom, it was the late 90s and it was a Tascam, 4-track recorder. But I'd done our band's demos, and I'd always like been the most, I think, hands-on with that. And I just loved it so much. I loved being in it in that way. And in all the amazing experiences I've gotten to have in studios with great producers and great engineers, I'd already learned so much, and I kind of wanted to just focus on that. So yeah, 2015, I landed here in Nashville and just started immediately working with other people. And this town is really small. You can get anywhere in 20 minutes. It's wonderful. It's very, very convenient. But yeah, and writing is great. I love writing with other artists, but it's really the production stuff and being in the studio and putting it down and putting the final thing down, whether it's a demo that turns into the final thing or whatever. But I don't know. I love it. I love it so much. And it's fulfilling to me at the end of every day. Like I actually feel like accomplished. And, I have, I don't know, more of those days than not. So I just really enjoy it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I know, like you and Mike have also Mike's gotten into the production side. Does that change the dynamic when you're like recording with Howard Benson? You know what I mean?
Not really. We haven't really made a record in that way in almost 10 years now. So the both of us have really, I mean, he built a studio in his house in Oklahoma way before, I ever landed in Nashville. And he's been doing it for a while, but I think the last, 5 to 10 years for the both of us, like we've both been really focusing on other projects and just producing and just taking everything we've learned and witnessed, in those studios with Howard and Eric Valentine and Greg Wells and, all these like fucking masterclass producers. We've done a few songs here and there, and I think if anything, it just helps because we're able to lend a little more the technical side, I guess. And what I mean by that, I guess, is more just like we're bringing in demos that have some stuff that is recorded well and can be on the final thing. Or I think on one song even I ended up using my mobile guitar rig, like laptop and a fucking interface, and those were the guitars that we used on that song. So in that way it's helped, like that we're just able to just be another tool in the tool belt, I guess. But I feel like this is a long-winded answer that's not really answering your question, but
No, it's perfect because that's the type of stuff that we love, the behind the scenes stuff. Like we want to know, like how, I mean, you talking about having those master classes with Howard Benson and the like, and now you bringing that to your day job. I mean, that's the type of shit that we're like, yeah, cool. This is awesome. I want to hear about that. So that was great. That was great.
I looking back now, knowing what I do now about where I want to focus my time and my energy and what, fulfills me the most, just musically as well as just like emotionally, I wish I would have paid more attention to everything technical that was going on in those studios. I think at the time I was really focused on the music and orchestrating just what was being played and what was being recorded, and not how it was being recorded. And Mike was a lot better at me than at that, but I wish I would have fucking paid more attention and learned microphone names. Like that's something that I've actually I did a deep dive of, and I actually know the difference between, you know, the three types of microphones and what they're all called, all the letters and numbers and shit that just sound like code. But
we may need your help.
Yeah, we're still learning there.
Right.
I got you.
And we can't. Plus, we can't afford Shure microphones, so there's that.
Yeah, right.
So Nick, I mean, we could chat with you all night, and if you'd have us, we'd be chatting till 10 p.m. or maybe even 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. But we'll wrap it with this.
I'm crashing here tonight, so I got nothing else to do. Thank God I still got internet.
Well, that's good. Yeah. All right. Well, maybe we'll sign you up till 10 a.m.
All-nighter, the all-nighter podcast. We're gonna break a world record. Let's do this. I
just started the stopwatch. We're good. Okay, let's go.
All right.
It actually starts now. Yeah.
Oh, now we're recording. Okay.
Right. Well, yeah. None of that was recorded. That was all just fun.
I got a double check here.
That was sound check. Yep.
We're just shooting the shit.
We're like the Joe Rogan of music podcasts. We're gonna go for 4 hours.
We like to close with what we call lightning round. So it's kind of the questions that don't fit into the rest of the interview. So
I'm terrible at these. Let's do it.
No, you'll be fine. Tony mentioned a term earlier, which is nerdery, which is basically our term for anything tangible that we really geek out about or an experience. So like my favorite nerdery moment could be, I don't know, you and Bon Jovi at TD Bank Garden in 2007, whatever.
Gotcha.
So curious about your favorite piece of nerdery, physical or experience, over the years, music-wise.
Oh man, I can answer both of those. Just experience. We got to do this thing once called what was it? It was called the Rock Honors. VH1 did this for a few years back in the mid 2000s, and they would have new artists cover classic songs. It was kind of like the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Like they would have like, the year we did it was Judas Priest, Kiss, Queen, and we covered Def Leppard, which I also have a Def Leppard tattoo. So yeah, it was very special. We played Photograph. I play mostly Firebirds, but you need a dive bomb moment when you're playing that guitar solo. So I had to outfit a Firebird with the floating tremolo. That's like a long scale neck. I'm surprised the fucking thing didn't break in half. Thank God it stayed in tune and I made it through the song. But I remember that day we were on stage sound checking. Paul Stanley was in the wings. Brian May was out by front of house watching a sound check. And when we got done and came off stage, Def Leppard was right there. They'd been watching the whole time. And it was in Vegas too, of all places. Like Amazing. It was the most fucking surreal thing that I've ever witnessed or even been a part of. Like, even if I was there as a spectator, I would have, like, my mind would have been blown, but getting to do that was insane. So that was probably like the nerdiest musical experience I've ever had. But non-music, it's tricky when you're like, when your passion and the one thing that you're good at becomes your job, you kind of never develop hobbies. Like, because like when in my spare time, I'm just going to work. I'm just going to do music shit. So I guess what I really nerd out about is coffee. I've got all the apparatus here to I make pour overs all day long with my Kalita Wave and my fucking expensive kettle and my stupid expensive grinder. I get really nerdy with that. I actually just found a roasting machine that does not require any sort of ventilation. Like most people, if they're roasting, like they have to have something like basically a dryer vent, like so that they can, let all the, carbon dioxide or whatever the fuck the gases are. So that might be my next thing. Nice. I also really got into Legos over quarantine.
Nice.
Because I was like, okay, I'm literally working all day, every day, 7 days a week. Like, I'm enjoying it, but I've got to balance this with something. And fortunately, Legos is putting out a lot of nostalgic shit these days. So I got the I got the Friends Central Perk coffee shop. I got the
Nice.
I got the fucking Ecto One fucking Ghostbuster car.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask you, is the Millennium Falcon right behind you there? I'm waiting for that to come up.
No, you know what? I did like Star Wars as a kid, but I was born in '82, so I was a little young for Star Wars, and I didn't really have anybody in my family to show me Star Wars. So I was more of like Ghostbusters, Goonies, that kind of shit.
Goonies, man, you're speaking our language.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So how about that for a lightning round answer? That was the fucking longest winded lightning round answer
that's amazing.
you've ever had.
Go back and listen to some of our other ones, man. There's a plenty of long lightning round answers.
All right. So I thought it was just me.
We live for tangents.
Tangents.
Oh, I got him.
You can't see it, Nick, but about 10 feet this way, I have a Def Leppard Hysteria gold record on the wall. Yep.
Shut up. That's so cool.
Yeah, my dad gave it to me. That's his favorite band, and he's actually the one that noticed the Def Leppard shirt in the Swing Swing video.
I still got it too.
Oh, that actual one. Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah, thankfully my ex-girlfriend get it back.
Yes.
That's amazing. Jeez, that made my night.
Yeah. Slick will be happy.
Yeah, that was a family request.
Yeah. We outsource nerdery questions every now and then to family, and Slick, his dad's name is Rick. We call him Slick.
Oh yeah, Slick Rick, I love it.
Yeah.
Well, tell him I'm a fellow Hysteria fan, and that I will say that tape growing up, like I'll say Hysteria and Bon Jovi, New Jersey. Those are the reasons that I really got into like rock guitar.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the sweeping guitars, Mutt Lange on the production. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
Fuck yeah.
I was once backstage at a U2 show, and Joe Elliott was there, but we didn't get close enough to him to talk, and I was super bummed. But me and Rob, our episode 17 guest, one of our close friends, got back. We were backstage at this like Cedarwood Lounge at U2 in 2010 or something. And I was like, oh man, that's Joe Elliott from Def Leppard. Like, what? This is amazing.
What the hell is he doing here?
Talk about a music nerdery moment, man.
Totally, one of the best.
I never got to see U2 until a couple years ago when they did the Joshua Tree tour.
Nice.
And I'm really happy I held out. I would have loved to have seen them on the All That You Can't Leave Behind tour. Like that was when I really started getting into U2, because it was a little. I was into like super showy rock shit, in the 80s. So I didn't really get into them until the 2000s when they kind of went back to that. But yeah, I saw that Joshua Tree tour where they played it front to back, and fuck, man.
That's awesome, man. Oh.
Yeah. Did you see that tour?
No, we went. Nate and I went in 2005 to.
Okay, that would have been great too.
Oh yeah,
would have been the Atom Bomb record, huh?
Yep.
Oh.
And number one show of all time for me, and I've been to, I don't know how many, couple hundred anyway. But it was
you can edit all this shit out, but I would have loved to have seen fucking City of Blinding Light, man.
Oh my god, dude! No, we're leaving that in, and it was amazing.
Talk about
awesome.
Talk about a song where the crowd takes half the song. Like City of Blinding Lights is so like cool. a fully immersive experience in concert, like 100%.
Yeah. Oh man, I can't even imagine. It's like the new Where the Streets Have No Name.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Yep.
Yeah, I don't think they played that one when I saw them, but they opened the show not with Joshua Tree. They did like a handful of rotating songs every night, and when I saw them, they would walk out one by one onto like this small B stage. They didn't start on the big stage, on this tight little B stage where they just all barely fit.
Yeah.
And fucking Larry walks out by himself, and he sits down. All the house lights are still on, and then just and one by one they just walk out. Fucking Edge comes out and plays that arpeggio, and then and then after they did Bad and fucking Pride and like all those old ones you want to hear, then all the fucking lights go down and fucking Where the Streets Have No Name swells in, and they all go to the big stage, and oh my god, like it's
so cool.
I cried for like 2 fucking hours that night.
Yeah.
It was
it's such an emotional experience. Where
totally.
were you? Where was the show at that you saw?
I was living in Nashville at the time, but the closest show was up in Chicago. So I drove and saw him at Soldier Field.
Oh, right on. Nice.
Which was a total fucking shit show. I spent more time trying to get in and trying to get home than I did at the actual show. But then later on, they came through and played in fucking Louisville, and I could have seen them 2 hours away at a smaller football stadium. That would have been a lot easier, but it was an amazing experience.
Yeah.
That's so funny. That's what I was asking. I didn't know if you were still in LA because I saw that tour at the Rose Bowl in Pasadena, and I was like, man,
nice.
It was like, this is kick ass. I wish it was actually in Joshua Tree, would have been more appropriate, but
fuck yeah.
Same thing, like all the traffic getting to the show in Pasadena, and then they came to San Diego to Petco Park like 2 months later. I'm like, oh, I should have just waited.
See, same thing. Yeah, actually, I think they ended up coming through and playing at Bonnaroo on that tour too. But it was their first U.S. festival in history.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
But they didn't have the stage or the production, so I didn't want to see him there. I drove 10 hours and saw him in fucking football.
Got to see the production. Got to see the whole.
Fuck yeah.
That's part of it. That's totally part of it.
Full disclaimer. Me and Nick do pay attention. Those other shows that was the second leg, so we would have gone to them. Like I would have gone to the San Diego show, but that was like leg 2 of the tour. I'm like, oh shit, it's down the street. Fuck.
Yep. Yeah, same thing happened. I didn't know they were going to keep booking dates and announcing dates, but oh well.
Oh man, Twan, you got any more nerdery questions, or was that
no?
was that a good
I
spot
mean,
to stop?
I think that's like the pinnacle. Like that's
that's a good one. Yeah,
that's the swing of the nerdery, and we're gonna stop there.
Okay, you know what? I'll bring it around full circle. So I really started getting into U2, like I said, when All That You Can't Leave Behind came out. I would get in my 1987 Toyota Tercel that I drove in high school, put that record on, and drive to the coffee shop every morning. This was after I had graduated already, but we were writing our first record. I would get in the car, I'd put that record on, I would drive to the coffee shop, I would go to the post office and check the P.O. box for fan mail. Nice. All we got were fucking, it was like geezer mail from the people that had the P.O. box before and probably died. Like that's the only thing we ever got. But I would listen to that record, and I really got into U2 during the writing and the making of our first album. And I remember being in New York every Sunday. We would have Sundays off. I would go into Times Square to the Virgin Mega store there that I think is like a Forever 21 or some bullshit now. And I would buy a new U2 record, and I would just go around the city and ride the subway and just listen to my fucking Discman. And I would just digest another U2 record. And I mean, shit, I did that every week for 2 months, and I had a brand new U2 record every week to learn about and digest. So it was a really cool time.
That's freaking awesome, cool. Man. I can relate with that 100%. I lived in New York City for a while too, and used to go to that record store too. And listening to albums in its entirety on the subway is a fucking trip. That's like a movie all day. You could write books on that. It's crazy.
No, and you just watch people, and they're almost like performing a music video for you. Like
exactly,
it's incredible.
Insanity. Yeah. And you end up way in Rockaway, you slept on the plane, woke up to like the last song. You're like, oh shit, missed my stuff.
Like, oh fuck, I'm at Coney Island. Oh shit, all right, I guess I'll get a hot dog and fucking ride something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, we want to thank you for coming on with us tonight, Nick. That was a lot of fun, and really, really appreciate your nerdery answers, because that's the type of stuff that we live for.
Oh, awesome! I had a blast. I live for that shit. So thanks for indulging me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been awesome. And just on your insight from other albums, maybe we'll have you back on like a deep dive Def Leppard episode, something like that. Maybe. Who knows?
Yeah, that's doable.
Love it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Hysteria 40-30.
No,
I don't know
more than that. Yeah, closer to 40,
it's,
man.
80s.
Well, no, Hysteria was 87.
87.
So we are
6 years away.
We're coming up on 35.
Yeah, 35.
Perfect.
That works.
Yeah.
Wow. Insane.
Amazing.
We could do Pyromania in a couple years though for 40.
Ooh,
that's right.
Let's just do a Def Lep deep dive.
Def Lep deep dive.
Could do that, because
say that 10 times fast.
there's some decent like post Mutt Lange Def Leppard stuff.
Yeah, Euphoria was a comeback. Was a throwback.
Is that the one that had Promises on it?
Yes. Yep.
That's a great fucking tune and a great riff, man.
Absolutely.
I used to sound check with that riff. Like, I love that tune.
Yeah. Da-na-na-na-na. Yeah. Yeah. So good.
Fuck yeah. Well, dudes, thank you so much for the time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, my pleasure.
So much fun. Nick, thank you. And we'll be back for round 2. We'll figure that out later.
Man, best school lunch ever. That was awesome. Hanging out with Nick Wheeler, talking music, geeking out. Was so happy that he sat at our table today to nerd out.
I love your dedication to the school lunch bit. That was...
Yeah, I'm trying to frame it. You know what I mean? Like, were you there? This is what it was like. It's us geeking out all the time. Because I gotta just admit that we are full on geeks. Like, we can't get away from that. Like, we sound like geeks. We are geeks. It's okay. It's cool. I'm comfortable.
Yeah, we nerd out on music, and we got to do it tonight with a very down to earth, very awesome, very candid Nick Wheeler of the All American Rejects, and that was an absolute blast. He gave us some really fun stories. I just loved his enthusiasm for what he continues to do. He's been doing it now for 20 plus years, in some form or fashion, whether it be on the production side or in on the band side. And I don't think the band side is over either. Like, he's still playing, he's still doing a lot of things. So keep an eye out for that. But yeah, man, lots of fun, lots of enthusiasm. It's hard not to be excited about it after listening to that.
And Nate, you just confirmed your residency as the analogy king of the Podioslave podcast.
Yep, he did, didn't he?
Last week it was comparing music style to jeans. This week it was the nerd lunch table. But yeah, Nick is man, he's just so down to earth, and like, that's what you want out of an interview. Like, Nick, if you're listening, that was the blueprint for like us geeking out, and obviously it sounded like you had a great time too. So if you're listening to us, this is all what we're all about. Like, Nick checked every box for us, and even down to what he's into for music, to the tours. Like, it's questions we've always had, and he was so open about it, and he was a dream guest from my perspective.
Yeah, it was excellent. Just hanging out, talking music, backstory, like you said, behind the music style, questions and answers, and to go that deep and to really just geek out, and no bars held, just kind of really just get down to the brass tacks. And I feel like we did that tonight. It was almost like if we were a podcast, and we always kind of pretend that we're a band sometimes. Like, that was a good gig tonight. That was fucking excellent. And I'm super happy that we're doing this.
It felt like you're just sitting around, living room with a close friend, and you're getting the story behind the story, like
lunch
that
table.
Yeah, at the lunch table, right? You're at the lunch table in 8th grade, and it's pizza day. Everybody's super excited because the pepperoni pizza's coming out, and it's like, oh, who's gonna sit with us today? But good call, Twan. But yeah, it felt like that. It felt comfortable. It felt good. It felt like you're just kind of fly on the wall for a conversation among people that all love similar things, love the same stuff. So we couldn't ask for more from that. We really appreciate Nick's time tonight and today, tomorrow, whenever you're listening to this. But we really appreciate it, and it was a blast. I'm super stoked to listen back to that and see how it goes. And if you guys liked it, like, rate it, subscribe, tell a friend, do all that fun stuff, because we really appreciate everybody that listens, everybody that checks us out. And if you know somebody that might like it, pass it along, and then go ahead and rate and subscribe and all that fun stuff too.
Yeah, totally. Especially from someone who's in a band as massive as All American Rejects is, and just their back catalog. And it's so cool when you kind of meet people that you grew up listening to and still listen to, and it's everything that you thought it would be. So yeah, super stoked. And thank you for listening. We totally appreciate it.
Absolutely. I think this is an interview that, is all ages, kind of covers all grounds, and we were super stoked to have him on. So cheers to my milk carton. I got chocolate milk. What do you got, Skim? Cheers.
I got chalky milk too, man. Hershey's. Yeah.
Yeah, I got chalky milk over here, and I got nachos with the gooey cheese.
Ooh, man, I got some Lay's salt and vinegar chips, because that was my lunch for like 4 years. So, chalky milk and Lay's salt and vinegar chips.
Ooh, I got the tater tots.
Oh, man. Did Willie the Whale give them to you? All right, we're done. Inside joke for the Podioslave nerds, and we are out. Peace, podheads.
Cheers.
Peace. Thank you.
And he's spinning somewhere Friday. Bring your girlfriend, bring your boyfriend, make your girlfriend be your boyfriend, and we'll pregame that's what we're all about. And now rolls my spliff, takes a hit. My shit's so lit, we ain't never gonna quit. We don't give a fuck, we don't give a fuck. Smoking ciggies in the car with the windows up. We don't give a fuck, we don't give a fuck. Like sex on necks and an ice cream truck. Pills, pills, alcohol. Catch us when we free fall. We don't give a fuck, we don't give a fuck, no. Fuck yeah. My daddy hates me, mama loves me. Gives me all my daddy's money. What's a day job? What's a paycheck? Got myself a line of credit. Hey man, put that on my tab. You can just give me the cash. Yeah, Will rolls that spliff, takes a hit. My shit's so lit, we ain't ever gonna quit. We don't give a fuck, we don't give a fuck. Smoking ciggies in the car with the windows up. We don't give a fuck, we don't give a fuck. Like sex on necks in a day glow bus. Pills, pills, alcohol. Catch us when we free fall. We don't give a fuck, we don't give a fuck, no. Fuck yeah. Yeah, fuck yeah. We don't care if you hate us for this song, 'cause we're not listening and we don't care if you hate us for this song, 'cause we're not sorry. We got pills, pills, alcohol to catch us when we free fall. Pills, pills, alcohol to catch us when we free fall. No, student loan, won't you take me alone? Pills, pills, alcohol. We don't give a fuck, we don't give a fuck. We don't give a fuck, we don't give a fuck. You can take that shit and you can smoke it all